A lot of people might not know this because it was never actually released internationally, but the final duel of the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX series is actually between the main characters of the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX series, Jaden Yugi, and the former protagonist of the original series, Yugimoto. Honestly, if you saw this duel, it was really cool to see. However, despite this epic duel, the duel ends ambiguous and is left up to the viewers to decide who actually won the duel. So I thought for today, how about we analyse the entirety of the duel, judge all the decisions made throughout the duel, and see, at the end, who really was going to win this duel. Was it Jaden, or was it Yugi? Let's find out. We should probably have a little bit of context. How is this duel even happening in the first place? Isn't Yu-Gi-Oh! GX set in the future? Well, you see, at the end of the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX series, Jaden leaves Duel Academy, but before he does, he takes a look at Yugi's deck that's on display. Here, an adult Yugi appears, telling him that he has lost something, and that he doesn't realise what has actually gone. What did he lose? Well, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Regardless, Jaden is then transported to a kind of pocket dimension that is frozen in time, set in the past when Yugi and Atem were still together, and as well, Yugi is still in possession of all 3 god cards. The implication of this, why he's dueling Yugi in the past rather than the one in the present, is this is Yugi in his prime. He's around the same age as Jaden, he possesses all 3 of the god cards, and he still has his partner with him, Atem. And it is here that the duel begins. Let's take a look, shall we? The duel begins with Jaden going first. He draws, and we see his starting hand. It consists of Elemental Hero Neos, Avion Bastinatrix, Polymerization, Negate Attack, and Neos Force. He starts by fusing his Avion and Bastinatrix with Polymerization to make Flame Wingman, which, keep in mind, was his original boss monster from the earlier parts of the series, so it's kind of fitting that he makes it first. And also, the reason he summons Flame Wingman so early, despite not having much protection for it, is it is set up for later, as if things go pear-shaped, he can use it for the summon of Shining Flare Wingman. He ends his turn by setting Negate Attack. It's Yugi's turn and he draws, and his hand is also shown to us. Thank you so much, Anime, for showing us hands, by the way. I hate it when you leave it ambiguous and I have to reverse engineer the duels. Thank you. His hand contains Dark Magician, Obnoxious Celtic Guardian, Mystical Elf, Mirror Force, Magical Dimension, and Shift. He summons Mystical Elf and uses Magical Dimension to tribute Mystical Elf to special summon Dark Magician. He then destroys Flame Wingman through Magical Dimension's secondary effect. Yugi attempts to attack directly, but negates his attack with Negate Attack. It's actually a really good name for a card, isn't it? It's very to the point. Yugi ends by setting both his Shift and Mirror Force trap cards face down. Jaden's turn, and he draws Elemental Hero Bubbleman. He normal summons it in defense, then, due to its anime effect, it allows Jaden to draw 2 cards. The cards he draws are A Hero Emerges and Death and Rebirth. He ends by setting those 2 cards face down along with his Neos Force. Why did he set his Neos Force as well? Well, the reason he did that is because he's got A Hero Emerges face down, which picks a random card in his hand, he's able to special summon it. So a tactic he normally does is he just gets rid of everything in his hand, and as long as he's got 1 monster in there, guarantees the summon and sets him up next turn. It's Yugi's turn and he draws Thousand Knives. He normal summons his Obnoxious Celtic Guardian, then uses Thousand Knives to destroy Jaden's Bubbleman. Dark Magician then attempts to attack directly again, but Jaden uses A Hero Emerges, summoning Elemental Hero Neos straight to the field. Yugi chooses not to trade with Dark Magician here, since he knows it would be protected by Mirror Force next turn if Jaden decides to attack. So, he ends his turn here. It's Jaden's turn and he draws Card Trooper. He summons it, then uses its effect to send the top 3 cards of his deck to the graveyard. Which, let's be honest here, the cards that go to the graveyard are the definition of protagonist luck. Out of everything in Jaden's deck, 2 of the cards that go to the graveyard are his only 2 graveyard specialization cards. Those are Elemental Hero Necro Gardener and Elemental Hero Necroshade. Spark Blaster also goes to the grave, but let's be honest here, that's not a massive loss really. Card Trooper's attack increases to 1900. Then Jaden activates and equips his Neos Force spell onto Neos, increasing its attack by 800, making it stronger than Dark Magician. Not only that, but Neos Force actually allows the user to inflict damage equal to the attack of the destroyed monster. However, during the end phase, it is shuffled back into the deck. Neos attacks Dark Magician, but Yugi then plays Mirror Force, destroying all of Jaden's monsters. Card Trooper's effect kicks in here, allowing Jaden to draw upon its destruction. The card he drew here was the equipped spell, Impact Flip. Now this draw, and this card specifically, is actually a crucial moment in the duel. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but it's not a good thing. Jaden plays his Death and Rebirth trap to destroy Dark Magician and then summon back his Neos. However, Yugi uses Shift to make it so obnoxious Celtic Guardian is destroyed instead. Then, due to the secondary effect of Death and Rebirth, Neos is forced to battle Dark Magician, with both aces being destroyed simultaneously. It's Yugi's turn and he draws Alpha the Magnet Warrior, and since this is the only card that he has, he summons it and attacks directly. However, the attack is negated through Jaden banishing his Necro Gardener in the grave. It's Jaden's turn and he draws Elemental Hero Sparkman. He summons it and attacks over Yugi's Alpha the Magnet Warrior, dealing the first damage of the game on turn 6. It's Yugi's turn, he draws Swift Gaia the Fierce Knight. And since it's the only card in Yugi's hand, he's allowed to normal summon it without a tribute. Gaia then attacks and destroys Sparkman, dealing damage to Jaden. It's Jaden's turn and he draws Blade Edge. He uses the effect of Elemental Hero Necroshade to normal summon Blade Edge without a tribute. He then activates Impact Flip and equips it to the monster. Now, just to let you all know, for those that don't know, Impact Flip is a anime exclusive card, and its effect is, once per turn you can flip one face down defense position monster your opponent controls face up. Flip effects are not activated at this time. When the equipped monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle, send the top card of your opponent's deck to the graveyard. When this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, both players draw one card. That first effect isn't too bad, right? If you're playing someone that has flip effect monsters, it's quite a strong ability. Right? Well, no, because this is the Yu-Gi-Oh anime. No one sets their cards face down. They always summon in face-up defense, so this is a completely useless ability. Well, how about its second effect? Sending the top card of your opponent's deck to the graveyard. Ooh, this is kind of a 50-50 really. Graveyard effects do exist in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX series, and I know this is early Yu-Gi-Oh!, but even in this duel, we have seen graveyard effect monsters. Well, how about its third effect? Well, it lets your opponent draw a card, but you're also drawing a card, so again, this benefits your opponent just as much as it benefits you. To summarize, this card should not be in Jaden's deck. It doesn't help his strategy to win a duel, it doesn't really fit with his deck's dynamic or anything, and the only reason it seems to be in here is so that it can mill a card from the top of Yugi's deck, which just so happens to be the only graveyard effect monster that Yugi has in his deck. But I am going to be fair, since Jaden did get 2 incredibly lucky mills earlier in the duel, it's only right that Yugi also gets the same similar level of luck, since when Blade Edge attacks and destroys Swift Gaia the Fierce Knight, Impact Flip forces Yugi to send the top card of his deck to the graveyard, which just so happens to be Beast of Gilfer. Now this is a little bit naughty of Yugi, but in the end it doesn't really matter because Jaden couldn't have changed the outcome no matter what. But when Beast of Gilfer is sent to the graveyard, it's supposed to immediately equip onto your opponent's monster. This doesn't happen until later, and you actually do see a little bit later on Yugi's duel disc, it's not actually in his spell and trap zone, so it equips during Jaden's turn. This is just for suspense. Makes it more interesting for the viewers, so we can suspend disbelief. It's not a big deal. Now it's Yugi's turn. He activates probably one of the 5 most busted cards in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Card of Sanctity, which lets both players draw until they have 6 cards each, and since neither duelist had a hand, they both get the full benefits of the spell. Yugi draws Watapon, Dark Magician Girl, Mystical Ref Panel, Magic Cylinder, Dark Renewal, and Kuribo. Jaden drew Heroes Guild, Contact Out, Neospace, Miracle Contact, Miracle Fusion, and Subspace Battle. Now, since Yugi drew into Watapon, it is special summoned, which he sacrifices for Dark Magician Girl, which also gains an additional 300 attack since Dark Magician is in the grave. Dark Magician Girl then attacks and destroys Blade Edge, since it was, surprise, weakened by Gilfer. The third effect of Impact Flip kicks in here, letting both players draw 1 card. Yugi draws Magical Hats, while Jaden draws Code Change. Yugi ends by setting 3 cards face down: Mystical Ref Panel, Magic Cylinder, and Dark Renewal. It is at this point in the duel where Jaden has a moment to reflect on what he's lost. What Jaden had lost was dueling for fun. The countless life and death battles he had experienced over the course of the 3 years he was at Duel Academy had really taken its toll on him, and only through this duel was he able to get back to the way he was when he first appeared to us in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. Only now, maybe just a little bit more wiser. It's honestly a really nice moment, and they both have a little bit of a laugh about it, how serious they were kind of taking the duel. Now it's Jaden's turn with a brand new outlook on dueling, and the card he draws is Winged Kuriboh. His hand here is pretty mad, to be honest with 7 spells. He activates Hero's Guild. Its effect is, once per turn, you can have both players send the top card of their decks to the grave, and if a warrior type monster is sent to the grave this way, the player who sent it can add it to the hand. If a card is added to a player's hand by this effect, destroy this card. He uses this effect straight away, and the card sent is Neospatian Grand Mole, while Yugi's was his Slifer the Sky Dragon. Since neither is a warrior, both are supposed to go to the grave. However, Jaden plays Code Change to change the text on Hero's Guild from warrior to rock, so he can add Grand Mole to his hand. However, Yugi activates his face down mystical ref panel to negate the effect of Code Change and seal its effect, able to use it later in the duel when he wants to. This right here is Yugi setting up his end game for victory. After this, Jaden activates Subspace Battle, allowing each player to select 3 monster cards from their deck. Then the player who reveals the monsters with the lowest attacks takes 500 damage for each one and sends them to the graveyard, while the player who had the higher attack ones gets to add them to their hand. Yugi instinctively chooses his 3 most powerful monsters: Buster Blader, Blackluster Soldier, and Valkyrion the Magna Warrior. However, Jaden cleverly chose 3 monsters he simply wanted to be sent to the graveyard for the use of his Miracle Contact and Miracle Fusion spells. Yugi wins all 3 battles and gets to add all 3 cards to his hand. No idea why he didn't pick Obelisk the Tormentor here, because we know it's in his deck because at the start of the duel Jaden saw it with his good evil vision thing. So that was a little bit strange, I guess. But it doesn't really matter. Jaden's down to 1600 life points now, so everything works out. So at this point of the duel, Yugi's hand now consists of Valkyrion, Buster Blader, Blackluster Soldier, Kuriboh, and Magical Hats. This is where Jaden begins his endgame play. He activates Miracle Fusion, banishing Elemental Hero Flame Wingman and Elemental Hero Sparkman he'd set up earlier in the duel to summon Elemental Hero Shining Flare Wingman with 4600 attack through its effect. He then uses Miracle Contact to return Neos, Flare Scarab, and Grand Mole from his graveyard back into his deck in order to special summon Elemental Hero Magma Neos, which has 5400 attack through its effect and is then boosted even further when he activates Neo's Space, amplifying it to 6300 attack. Both these monsters for Jaden represent the pinnacles of each of his parts of dueling. It's his Elemental Hero Ultimate form and it's his Neospatian Ultimate form. And if either of these monsters are successful in their attacks, well, he wins the duel. And so, Magma Neos attacks, but Yugi plays Magic Cylinder to negate the attack and inflict the damage back to Jaden. Jaden quickly activates his quick play, Contact Out, to defuse his monster and summon its parts to the field. And fun fact, by the way, this isn't shenanigans. I saw a few people say that you can't negate Magic Cylinder like this. You actually can. Magic Cylinder targets the monster that attacked, so if that monster is removed and the target isn't there anymore, so the effect can't resolve. This is fine. No shenanigans. Good play, Jaden. Shining Flare Wingman then attacks for what could be game, but Yami Yugi decides to take over the duel from here. Yami plays Dark Renewal to tribute his Dark Magician Girl and Jaden's Neospatian Grand Mole in order to summon a Dark Spellcaster from either his deck or his graveyard. Initially it seems that he's trying to get out his Dark Magician again, but looks can be deceiving. It is revealed that he can use the effect of Code Change since it was sealed in Mystical Ref Panel. He changes the text on Dark Renewal from Spellcaster to Divine Beast. However, if we're being technical, he's only changing the type of the monster, not the attribute. You needed to change the attribute as well to a divine, so it needed to be a divine beast. So, I don't know, I don't think you're really allowed to do that, Yugi, but alright, sure, it's the anime, whatever. Through this allows Yami to special summon Slifer the Sky Dragon from his graveyard, which gains 1000 attack and defense for each card in his hand. Since he has 5, this totals 5000 attack. A replay then occurs, and Jaden chooses not to attack with his Shining Flare Wingman, since it is weaker. And it is here that Yugi declares that this will be where their true match will begin. Jaden is pumped. The music swells, and Jaden seemingly attacks Yugi's guard with his Neos, and freeze frame. The conclusion to the duel is never revealed. We cut to a little bit later that day. Jaden says a couple of things, but we never find out the conclusion. Oh, why do they do this to us? I wanted to watch the end. However, Jaden has had his love for dueling restored, and he's ready to take on the next great adventure in his life. So it is a nice ending. So that's all we get. We need to now take a look at this, where we get left off with, and establish who would have won if we carried on seeing the duel from this. Let's take a look. Let's get one misconception out the way. Just because the duel ends with Jaden seemingly attacking Slifer with Neos doesn't mean that is actually what he did. All that is just a nice cinematic way of ending the series on a final freeze frame of Jaden's ace monster that helped him through loads of battles, going up against a literal god, against the best duelist of all time. It's really cool. That doesn't mean that this actually happened though, it's just the way they wanted to end the series. So most likely that's not what Jaden did, as of course if he did he would have taken 2,500 damage and lost the duel. So what happened next then? Well, let's take a look at the field and see what we're working with. Jaden's field contains 3 monsters: Neos with 2,500 attack, Flare Scarab with 500 attack, and Shining Flare Wingman with 4,600 attack. He has no cards in his spell and trap zone, and only 1 card left in his hand, which is Winged Karibo, and his life points sit at a mere 1,600. Yugi has only 1 monster on his side of the field with Slifer the Sky Dragon with 5,000 attack, which, keep in mind, every time Jaden summons a monster, it will decrease their attack by 2,000, and if it is reduced to 0, it gets destroyed. Yugi also has no cards in his back row, however he does have 5 cards in his hand, which are Karibo, Buster Blader, Blackluster Soldier, Valkyrion the Magna Warrior, Magical Hats, and his life points sit at a whopping 3,500. Now based on this, it does seem that Yugi is pretty stacked to win this duel. 5k monster from the field, really broken, can't be affected by most things, pretty substantial hand as well. Well, that's one way of looking at it, but perhaps not. This is how the rest of Jaden's turn most likely would have gone. After Slifer is summoned, doesn't attack. Instead, he goes into his main phase 2 and contact fuses again with Flare Scarab and Neos to make Flare Neos. It would have 2,500 original attack, which is then boosted to 3,400 through its effect and Neo space combined. However, then it would lose 2,000 attack since Slifer is on the field, which would make it 1,400. So I'm assuming Flare Neos would be summoned in defense position, simply as more protection. Also, since Jaden hasn't normal summoned, he can set Wing Karibo for additional defense if he wanted to. However, again, this is the anime, he's not setting Wing Karibo. I think he'll hold on to that. Now, this is the big thing. The Egyptian god. Egyptian gods. Fun fact, if you summon an Egyptian god from the graveyard, it has to go to the grave again at the end of the turn. Yep, that's right. As soon as Jaden ends his turn, Slifer goes straight to the graveyard. And this completely shifts the paradigm of this duel. Jaden is actually in a much superior position as soon as he ends his turn. And now this duel really is far from over. There's loads left to do. It would now be Yugi's turn and he would draw. But here is where it gets into complete speculation. I have no idea of knowing what he could draw because there's so many more cards left in Yugi's deck. Anything I say from this point on, it's speculation. It's just what I personally think would happen. What could he draw? Another god card? Blackluster Ritual so he can get his Blackluster Soldier out. Maybe he gets his Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning. We know he has that card. We saw it in Dimitri's deck earlier in the series. That would be quite a cool card to get out. However, what I think would make more sense is probably something like Monster Reborn. Why Monster Reborn? Well, with Monster Reborn, he can bring back his Dark Magician, and since he's got Magical Hats in his hand, he can actually stall out a few more turns and use a bit of a nostalgic card. This works from like an anime perspective of just watching it, and a dueling perspective because he can keep himself going. Some of you might be saying, well, why wouldn't he just get his Egyptian god back? Well, he wouldn't do that because he could bring Slifer back, attack, destroy Shining Flare Wingman, do a little bit of damage, but then at the end of the turn it's going to go back to the grave and he's got no protection again, so that wouldn't be a good play. So I think the Dark Magician play makes sense since he's got Magical Hats in his hand. And he's got so many other cards in his hand that this could eventually lead to more plays that he can do. And why else do I like this? Well, Jaden is a monster that if it destroys a monster, it inflicts damage to your opponent equal to that monster's attack. So it'd be kind of tense to have these Magical Hats in the field. There's a Dark Magician underneath one of them, and he knows that if he destroys that, he's going to take 2,500 damage. And since he's got a Buster Blader in hand, he could stall out until he gets a Polymerization, fuse Dark Magician with Buster Blader to get Dark Paladin out, and then, I don't know, you could do so much more stuff with this. I mean, what does each duelist have left in their arsenal? Yugi has Valkyrion, Buster Blader, Blacklist the Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning, Obelisk the Tormentor, the Winged Dragon of Ra. He still has his fusion monsters, Dark Paladin, and obviously he has all of his powerful spells and traps as well. And Jaden as well, he still has all of his extra deck left. He has so many different monsters for different situations, and also he still has Yubel, which he hasn't summoned, and also he has access to Neos Wise Man, and going a bit further, even his Divine Neos. Let's be honest, who doesn't get out their ultimate boss monsters in the final duel of a series? It's just normally what happens. So let's be fair, this duel has a lot more turns left to go after the duel had ended for the viewers. And while it appeared Yugi had the advantage, once his turn ended, it would have switched back to Jaden being in control. And Yugi, despite an impressive hand advantage, would need to draw something to help him out. Which, for Yugi of course, that isn't difficult, let's be honest. And this back and forth would then continue more and more. So to wrap up the answer to this question, who was going to win the duel between Yugi and Jaden? From a simple analysis point of view, from everything we have seen, it is unclear. I'm not sure how it would have gone. Based on the stats and facts, unfortunately, it's ambiguous. However, I personally can tell you who I thought won the duel. But to do that, we need to look at the very first episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX series. Specifically, its title. The title of the first episode was Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, The Next King of Games, or the Japanese title, The One Who Succeeds Yugi. The word succeed is defined as someone who takes over a throne. With that title in mind, I reckon Jaden eventually got out his Wing Karibo and probably used it with Transcendent Wings as a final play against maybe the God cards. That depends if monster effects are able to affect the Egyptian cards, because it's really up in the air. It's really 50-50 sometimes if the anime lets them affect them or not. But then Yugi uses his own Karibo, discards it from his hand to negate all of the damage. This is again if that sort of works like that, because it's normally monster battle, but this is the anime as well. Maybe it can negate one big blast of damage. Who knows? After this, I reckon that Jaden would still have lost. I think that Yugi would have had one more play and would have beat Jaden. Only by a hair, by a fraction, Yugi would have won. But I hear you cry, Sam, you just said the first episode was called The Next King of Games, or The One to Succeed Yugi. So wouldn't Jaden need to win to succeed Yugi? Yes and no. I personally don't think it's this Yugi in the past that he needs to succeed. I think that he has succeeded the Yugi of the present, the one that sent him back in time. This poses some questions. What you saying, that past Yugi is better than a more older, refined Yugi? I guess so, because this Yugi has 3 Egyptian god cards and the Pharaoh by his side as well. So I don't know, I think it is. I do think that Jaden becomes the next King of Games after this duel against past Yugi. It's also worth noting that what Jaden says at the end implies he lost, saying he wants to get stronger, and when he does, he's sure to try and duel him again. But then he does say gotcha as well, which is something that he says when he wins a duel, similar to That's Game in the dub. So who really knows? Who really knows what happened at the end of this duel? And honestly, there's a chance that this duel just doesn't have an ending, because the whole point of this duel was to get Jaden to love dueling again. That happened, so technically we didn't need the rest of the duel, which is a shame, but that's something. Regardless of all of that, that was my opinion on who won the final duel of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX series. I asked all of you guys in a poll to tell me who you thought would win, and these were the results. Majority said Yugi, but surprisingly a lot of you also thought about a draw. I didn't think that, but some of you did. I do apologise that I couldn't give a definitive answer like the other 2 videos, but the duel finishes so early, it's really hard to decide. But anyway, I'd love to know your speculations on how you think the rest of this duel would have gone, who do you think would have won and everything. But regardless, thank you all for watching this video. Bye everyone!